Alrighty, but it looks like everyone is in. Okay, hello everyone. This is the Australian Esports League bronze match. So this is our third place decider between our two kind of runner-up teams, Mate in 6 and Team Storm. Mate in 6 falling to Young Money Club and Team Storm being beaten by Hans Reborn. This is, of course, a best of 3. I am the Spectre, and joining me is Bloodlock. How you going?
I'm going pretty good. It was quite a pub stomp, I would have to say, against Hans Reborn in the last best of 3, with Team Storm not really dealing with Hans's push that well in game 2. So yeah, but I think it'll definitely be a more even matchup between Storm and Mate in 6.
Yeah, I think so as well. It should probably be one of the most even games of today. I mean, YMC versus Mate in 6 was decently close for the first kind of 10-15 minutes, but then YMC just ran away with it. YMC has also taken Hans to the limits before, so maybe our grand final will be a real slugfest, but right now I think Storm versus Mate in 6, they're definitely very close, and so far the Venomancer being banned out first by Team Storm. They had enough of it the last series with against Lippy.
Yeah, they just really don't like those pushing heroes, especially after Hans just picked them up in both games and just rolled over them with it. So I think they're sort of a little bit worried that it might get picked up again, but they just want to be safe and ban it out.
Yeah, I mean, Venomancer, he definitely deserves a ban or a pick. Like, in his current iteration, he's just incredibly strong. So I think that definitely worthy of a ban. I'm not sure kind of about first ban, but definitely a very strong hero, and we do see the kind of general ban out of Visage yet again by Mate in 6. They really dislike playing against this hero.
I think we have seen a little bit, especially in the Chinese scenes, with Vici Gaming and DK. They have sort of had a couple of games where they've banned it in the first or second ban phase. If not banned, then they have picked it up. But I think, especially in the Western scene, it's not as common a first ban as other heroes like Crystal Maiden or Elder Titan.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Elder Titan and Weaver seem to be our kind of first bans. There it goes again. But it means that things like the Clockwork gets through. And to be honest, if I had a choice between the Venomancer and a Clockwork, I guess it really depends on what you want to be doing with your draft. But in many cases, a Clockwork is much more dangerous and Venomancer less likely to be banned out. So I think that personally I would prefer the Clockwork ban out in these early stages, because I just think he's just incredibly strong. And Team Storm seem to really, really love their Alchemist, and will be picking it up first.
There was something a while back that S4 said, I think it was during Dream League or maybe after Dream League. He said a lot about the new meta and the drafting and that sort of thing. He said that a lot of it's not really to do with first bans and first picks anymore. It's kind of like you can ban any hero at any time. It doesn't make that much of a difference, although there is sort of, in saying that, there is still a lot of strategy in terms of first banning and playing out the draft. But obviously S4 is really good at drafting, so I'll take his word for it.
Very true. I think the heroes that are kind of still worthy of a first ban at this stage are Elder Titan, the Lich, the Clockwork, and then kind of +1. Weaver seems to be the one that the Australians fill that with, but to me, they're kind of the ones that you want to ban out instantly and can set up a lot of different playstyles. Like, it's not so much that the heroes are too strong, it's that they fit in well with certain playstyles. Like, with this pickup of the Lich, Mate in 6 can now dual mid, they could solo him in the off lane, they could put him as a support, and like there are so many kind of areas that a Lich can fit in, and it just makes wherever he is a lot easier for his lane partner. So, you know, it's just kind of dangerous to let something like the Lich through, and also the Clockwork being picked up. He's just insane at early game aggression. As soon as level 6 comes out, you should be picking up kills around the map, and even before then, if you catch a support out of position and have, 3 points into that battery assault, even early on with only 2, you can just instantly kill them off. So, Clockwork, just an extremely strong hero, and kind of, he's decent in the laning stages in this matter, and he's just extremely strong at initiation as well, which is something that we've seen both of these teams struggle with before in their drafts.
Yeah, I think Lich definitely is a strong pickup. He certainly helps a lot in lane with his sacrifice, giving the experience to, well, anyone in the AoE, but any smart Lich will be able to only give it to his team. But I think it's also sort of a double-edged sword, because Lich early on doesn't really provide a lot other than the experience in lane. And he can sort of harass people out of lane, but I think, with a decent aggressive lineup, you can pretty much shut him down.
Yeah, I think some players have tried to counteract it, or some teams rather have tried to counteract the Lich in putting up an aggressive tri lane, or just basically aggressive tower pushing heroes in whichever lane the Lich is in, because the sacrifice does take away a creep. It makes your creep wave weaker, and it means that you can push into towers a lot easier. So you can think of punishing that with something like the Pugna pickup, or even something like a Chen, which can, soak even more tower damage up and just continue to steamroll while that Lich is kind of weakening his own defenses in effect.
Storm really seemed to love their Crystal Maiden Alchemist combo.
Yeah, definitely. They pretty much just like the first two picks all the time, and they usually follow it up with something like the Mirana. So if Maiden 6 has been doing their homework, I mean, they've versed Team Storm enough and should have seen their games enough by now that they know that Ruby Phoenix is a madman on that Mirana, and they love comboing it up with supports like the Alchemist and the Crystal Maiden. So that, for me, if I was Maiden 6, that would be my #1 ban.
They're actually going to ban out the Timbersaw. I think Timbersaw is definitely a good ban. He's one of those heroes that, yes, you can deal with, but even though you can deal with, it's something that is very annoying to deal with, whether or not it's successful. And just because of that reactive armor, like the amount of regen he can get in lane when you're harassing him is just ridiculous. And he has obviously the Timber Chain to escape as well, so...
And I think the Maiden 6 thought process on this one is, if they put up a Timbersaw solo against a Clockwork, it's a pretty even matchup. I mean, Whirling Death really smacks the Clockwork down, Reactive Armor really helps the Timbersaw, but if you're a decent Clockwork player, you're going to be placing those cogs down, burning off the mana of the Timbersaw, so he can't throw out too many of those Whirling Deaths. So I think in that kind of situation, it's more down to player skill. But in general, I would give the edge to a Timbersaw player. And in any case, they would be trading farm for the most part, unless there is a big disparity in skill of the two players. So a wise ban out there by Maiden 6. And just, the general burst potential and annoyance of having to deal with the Timbersaw and getting the right amount of lockdown against them. But their next ban out will be a Clinks. And they're in fact going to pick up the Mirana themselves. So... I'm sure Ruby Phoenix will be fuming.
I'm honestly surprised that they banned the Clinks. I mean, Gosu Panda, he loves his Clinks, and they pick up the Mirana, I think, just because Gosu Panda plays a great Mirana as well, but they also didn't want Storm to have it, I think, and they do pick up the Bristleback, which obviously we saw that Hans Reborn rolled over Storm with it earlier.
They certainly did. I mean, it was an insanely well-played Bristleback, and they had the heroes to complement him properly, such as the Chen, that just kept him alive throughout all of these fights with a Mechanism and Hand of God. And, I think it's a pretty scary lineup with Crystal Maiden and Alchemist so far, just because Alchemist is going to provide the lockdown with the stun, Crystal Maiden as well, plus you have the mana regen aura for the Bristleback early on, which it doesn't fix, but it certainly helps with his mana issues early on into the game, so... He's very strong, plus if Clockwork initiates onto Bristleback, it's kind of a case of who's initiating on who, because then you're stuck in there with the Bristleback who's going to be throwing out the Nasal Goo and Quills, and can always just turn his back, but 8 and 6...
I was just about to say, they do need a reliable a disable, and obviously they pick up the Earthshaker, so they're going for the huge initiation damage. Obviously with the Clockwork hooking in, and eventually Earthshaker might pick up a Blink Dagger or Force Staff, and those Echo Slams are really going to start to hurt.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, they already have a decent way of initiating with the clockwork cogs into arrow from Mirana, but as you said, it's not a 100% success rate stun. They still can move around inside those cogs and try and dodge it. Also, the clockwork as well as the lich is a great combo. If you manage to hook and cogs, a couple of people, it just absolutely wrecks. And Team Storm going to be picking up that gyrocopter. So it looks like this bristleback's going to be in an offlane position with gyrocopter having support from his Crystal Maiden and Alchemist, although it could always be a mid Alchemist with a with another supporter down for that gyrocopter. We could even be seeing dual lanes with Crystal Maiden Bristleback and, Alchemist or Gyro +1 and Alchemist mid, so there are a lot of ways that Storm can take this draft right now.
I think we could, yeah, we definitely could see Alchemist go mid, although obviously like the dual lane definitely still is viable if they go aggressive with the Alchemist and the Gyro and put the Bristleback possibly in a solo and have Crystal Maiden just roaming through the jungle and coming in to assist Bristleback when needed. But there's definitely a lot of options that Storm can go for. They're just looking to get their last ban out now. I think they're possibly going to be banning out a mid hero because Mate 6, I do believe that Mirana is not going to go mid, as Gosu Panda usually goes farming Mirana, so...
Yeah, we do usually see that out from him. It could always be something like the Clockwork mid or even a Lich mid, which has popped up. Hans actually ran it to pretty great effect in a previous game, going up against the Queen of Pain, although he did have some help early on from a Venomancer, so it wasn't just Shaitan beating people down with the Lich, but it was a very potent mid because of course you are sacrificing so much experience away. You get a massive level advantage, and having a gimped mid player is really detrimental. It's just the only issue is that the levels on Lich, while they're useful, aren't the best. It's not like getting level 6 on a Queen of Pain who can go to lanes and gank really easily. Lich is more of that support role, so...
And Storm actually ran out of time there. They didn't actually end up banning anything out, so... I'm not sure if there was just some miscommunication or they just weren't watching the time, but it frees up Mate 6 to really pick whatever they want.
Yeah, kind of a bit odd there, going the Zenith strat, no bans. But maybe they just felt that there wasn't anyone that they really needed to ban, so left it open, but Mate 6 pick up the OD, which is going to make whoever plays in that mid lane, it's going to be really difficult. But I mean, the Razor is still in the pool, which is basically the counter to OD, and it's something that I've seen Ruby Phoenix play a lot. In fact, it's going to be the Viper pickup.
I was actually just going to say, there are still so many counters to OD in the pool. You've got your Viper, you've got your Kunkka. The Venomancer was banned by Storm, but they also still have the Razor as well. And actually, Lone Druid does go decently against OD, although it's not that great of a pickup.
Yeah, it's not amazing, but I still think it's a decent counter. But the Viper being picked up, it's a hero that we've seen a Kyrior dominate with before. Usually likes to get up the phase boots and then work into an Aghanim Scepter just for that kind of mid-game dominance with that 80% slow on Viper Strike. So it'll be interesting to see how he decides to play this game, but we can get underway now and introduce the teams. On the side of Team Storm, we do have a Kyrior on the Viper, Crystal Maiden being played by Magic Man, Gyrocopter being picked up by Ruby Phoenix, Bristleback played by Emster, and finally on the Alchemist is Meladjo.
Over on the Dire side, we have Gosu Panda, the captain, taking reins on the Mirana. We have on the OD going mid, possibly. We have Good For Me, My Baby. And on the Lich, we have Potato. On the Clockwork, we have Roger Dodger. And the stand-in on the Earthshaker, we have Fantasy.
Yeah, so right now, I mean, I really like MI6's initiation power. They've got the Clockwork hook in, they've got the long-range Fisher from Earthshaker. Later on in the game, he's going to be having that Blink Dagger, and you can always follow it up with Gosu Panda's Arrow, and in the earlier games when they don't really have a gem up, they don't have sentries posted everywhere, that Moonlight Shadow can be a great initiation tool. Not to mention kind of the follow-up, Sanity's Eclipse, but, you know, I think I prefer their initiation for Storm. For me, they don't really have a true kind of initiation. Like, maybe a Kyrior catches someone out with the Viper Strike, or Meladjo throws out a good stun, but, you know, Bristleback just runs in there. But to me, they're more of a reactive team than a kind of dominating team, that I think they're going to have to rely on, some sort of, I don't know, a misstep by MI6 to really get in these fights. So it may be a bit of a drafting mistake, but to me, Storm doesn't have any great form of initiation.
Yeah, I think in all honesty though, I think Storm, their lineup is more sort of, I think they have better late game than what MI6 have. They have obviously the Gyro, which does a great deal of damage late game. If he gets decent farm, gets up that BKB, goes for things like Butterfly and that sort of thing. But MI6 have a much stronger team fight. So I think even though if Storm get a great early lead, I think any team fight that MI6 wins can instantly turn the game around.
Yeah, definitely. Storm, I guess they kind of have different power curves. MI6 looking to get into that mid game. I mean, Storm aren't completely naked in that regard. They have the Viper and the Bristleback, two heroes that really definitely open up space during that mid game, and I think that's what they want to do. They need to try and open up the map for Gyrocopter to get some farm in and do some damage, get up the farm to really take these late game fights, and we might see engage early on. In fact, Roger Dodger walking into the Roshan pit, so maybe suspecting they were going in there instantly, but right now it doesn't look like they're going to really spot out each other at the moment. The ward is just going to find Akirior now, so and now the rest of the team, so they know they're walking in. Akirior's about to walk up here into Fantasy. If he gets a good Fisher block off, they could be in trouble. The ping's coming out. Fantasy thinking of turning around here. Clockwork just on the other side now. Malajo gets blocked off by that Fisher. The arrow to come out as well. Lich coming through. Doesn't have anything skilled at the moment. The stun channeled up. It's going to hit on two. Potato still gets that first blood. Now we see Akirior trying to hit through and get them back. Ruby Phoenix gets burned out. Excellent cogs there from the Clockwork. They're still going on Gosu Panda, but they might get caught out here. Ruby Phoenix low on health. Emster throwing out the quills, but it's just not enough. These teams need to get to their lanes. The arrow comes out, narrowly missing on Akirior, but he gets stunned out by a Fisher. Right clicks coming through, and he does go down. Meanwhile, Ruby Phoenix throwing out the rocket barrage onto Clockwork. It's going to be a 2-for-1 trade already at the 22nd mark, and luckily for Ruby Phoenix, picks up that regen rune straight away. So a decent start for Storm, getting one kill on their carry as well as a regen rune, so he can go instantly to lane. But MI6 grabbing the first blood, and it pours out here as OD. It's out of the game, but as we were saying before, or as I was saying before, 2 kills going the way of MI6. So they managed to pick up the kills on the Lich for first blood, I believe it was, as well as a kill for the OD. So
yeah, I think that's the sort of the issue as well. That's the trade-off. They get the first blood on Mate and 6, and obviously they get a kill for the OD on mid, so he's going to have a great time mid. Obviously the Viper is still there. That's going to negate him getting a lot of the damage off onto the Viper, but yeah, the kill onto Ruby Phoenix really sets him up for that lane. Like, that lane is already his to win, and he's got this advantage going in as well. And that regeneration rune is possibly the luckiest rune that he could have gotten in that situation.
yeah, exactly. Just instantly back at full health. Has used one tango at the moment, and he's just happy free farming in this bottom lane. No one's stopping him just yet. There is a ward blocking the camp, I believe. In fact, it looks like, yeah, they have. It is in range. They should be able to get it, but it's sneakily behind that tree, so they can't actually go in and attack it. Fantasy, in fact, can't even get vision of it. Now he can if he stands there. He should have been able to see that, but he's not able to take it down. In fact, neither can Roger Dodger. They have 2 melee heroes down in this bottom lane, so that ancient blocking from Fantasy is not going to work at all because they don't have it there. In fact, he will just use the tango to get through there. So a bit of economic damage inflicted by that sentry ward.
Yeah, I think it's definitely well worth it though. They're definitely going to need to get those stacks up. I think that could signify that maybe Gosu Panda's going for a push. Possibly if they want to stack those ancients, he might be going for something like a Maelstrom. I don't know. It's too early to tell at this point, I think.
At the moment, they're just grabbing up those ancients, so that Magic he just puts it down right at the 2-minute mark. But just so Earthshaker can pull it across. In fact, in mid, Alblo's taking a lot of damage from this Viper. Akirio right now 6-3 in the mid lane, where OD is only 3 for 2. The kill not doing much for him in this mid lane. Does have 680 in the bank. Generally, we don't see something like the thing brought up. In fact, Clockwork killing off Crystal Maiden down by that rune, so you can see that that battery assault really comes in handy if you can catch someone out. So Clockwork,
and there was a great
making him pay the price
as well. He blocked Magic Man sort of right in this area, so Clockwork was able to come straight down and just trap him in the cogs. So got the D ward off on the sentry, but to block the camp, but pays for it with his life. And obviously they went and D-warded it again, so hopefully the Ancients will be spawning for Earthshaker now.
Let's see, does he have another one? He doesn't have any more wards. In fact, he is just going to be stacking up camps, and this is something that's really good to do when you're with the Gyrocopter. In fact, we're going to have Meladro caught out by Roger Dodger here. Fisher stun coming through, but Meladro has his own stun, but that battery assault doing work. Meladro should fall here. Roger Dodger caught, but Ruby Phoenix gets knocked back by the cogs, throws out the Rocket Barrage, but it's not going to find any targets, and Roger Dodger doing a great job in this offlane. Now 2 for 1 after that one early death next to the Roshan. So, and they're keeping the Gyrocopter's farm down, you know, a little bit. He's still 15 for 9 because they are just killing off supports, but it's not as bad as it could be.
Yeah, I think if you look at the XP graph, it's still too early to tell who's really in the lead, but the XP has definitely gone back towards being almost dead even, just because of those pickoffs on the supports. And I think this is really good early game. This is what MI6 really should be doing constantly, because if they're able to get a lot of the early kills going into the mid game, then I think they're going to have a field day, just killing everything.
Yeah, they certainly will. I mean, right now, Emster in this top lane, Potato getting very far forward. In fact, Emster doesn't have any points into the Nasal Goo. A bit of an interesting build here. He's gone for 2 into the Bristleback and 2 into Quills. Not something that you often see, because I think if he did have that Goo, Potato would have been in a lot of trouble just then. Now Carblos coming in on that Viper. He's imprisoned him off already, looking to be very aggressive, but in comes Meladro, throws out the stun as well as the acid spray. Right clicks coming through, one more should do it, but he's bottling up in between shots. He's going to be living for now. Meladro is just too slow. He's got 1 second until he can start charging up the stun. In fact, as soon as he starts charging it, he gets cancelled out. Magic Man chasing now as well, but Meladro is going to stun himself. Luckily, probably about a half a step outside of tower range, but that's the time of 3 heroes that Carblos has now just wasted, where Akirio's not farming and he didn't go down.
Even though he has to go back to the fountain, like what you said is correct. That's the 2 supports, Meladro and Magic Man. They've wasted time coming mid, trying to get a kill that really Viper is able to get on his own against the OD. And it's really just setting them further behind.
Yeah, I think if they just waited for a half a level, they would have had it. Carblos now coming in very aggressively. Fantasy's here with the Fisher. Akirio needs to be careful. There's no orbs coming out from Carblos because he's gone for the standard 3-2 build. Akirio running for his life, and here comes Alchemist under the stun with the smoke. Now the Frostbite coming out as well. Akirio needs to be careful. Throws out 1 poison attack, but Carblos still bottling up again. That bottle, we don't normally see it on an OD, but it's saved his life twice now. And meanwhile, Ruby Phoenix getting a solo kill on the Gyrocopter in the bottom lane, throwing out the cooldown as well as the Rocket Barrage. It's kind of the problem of playing a Clockwork up against a Gyrocopter. It's the same if you're a Pudge. If you do manage to get in close and they already use their spells, they can inflict a ton of damage. And Ruby Phoenix just living there with about 50 health, so getting a great trade there.
I was actually about to say that MI6 sort of came out on top there, even though no one was killed up until, you know, the Clockwork gets solo killed. But MI6, they actually got the better sort of trade-off before Clockwork was killed, because the 2 supports were actually smoked up in this area, looking to go onto the Mirana and possibly the Lich as well, but they actually had to rotate back because of the initiation onto the Viper.
Akirio throwing out the Viper Strike. In fact, Carblos should be going down here. The ultimate does do quite a bit of damage. He lives on 12 health. OD is just refusing to die this game. Roger Dodger in a bit of trouble in the bottom lane, but we do see a double cog thrown out. They said they fixed the knockback, but it still looks pretty enormous to me. Clockwork getting away, and again, Bottle seems to be the MVP of this match.
12 HP just seems to be like the only sort of HP people hit when they're about to die. Like in the last game where Endless nearly died to the tower, he was also on 12 HP. So I'm not sure if it's just a glitch or it's just coincidence.
Our number of the day is 12. But right now, the supports of the Radiant aren't wasting time. They're being decently efficient. When their smoke gank failed, well not failed, but when they had to turn around, as you said, to protect the Viper, they've just gone into this jungle to dual jungle a bit. Now Malejo coming in here. The Imprisonment's already used, so if he wants to throw out a stun, he can. Carbol's now in trouble, but this Earthshaker is still here. Fantasy throwing out that Fissure. Akirion wants to get around there, but the Viper Strike's still on cooldown. And so they aren't able to pick up a kill yet again. Everyone just kind of refusing to die around here. In fact, we're going to have a hook in on bottom lane. Roger Dodger catches out Ruby Phoenix. 2 more shots and he'll go down. And that's a nice return solo kill. Hits level 6. In fact, is now level 8 because of that kill. And now we should be seeing Clockwork roaming around the map and getting kills. In fact, he can deny off this bottom tower.
Yeah, Gyrocopter actually got in one last hit before he died, so that actually made the tower deniable because the catapult was still aggro to the tower, so that Clockwork is going to go deny that tower, and then I think because he's hit level 8 now, he's going to be roaming around looking for kills.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of the problem with taking down a tier 1 this early in the game is it actually opens up kind of this area to farm quite safely for any kind of dire hero. As long as you've got a ward, you know, somewhere in this area, you know when heroes are trying to rotate in from here, you know when heroes are kind of coming around in this area, so up to about this point, it's quite safe to farm. So they've got a little bit of map area. It's never good losing a tower, but it's probably the best tower you can hope to lose. Meanwhile, stun in mid lane. Akirior coming through with the Viper Strike now. Carblos should definitely die this time. The one more right click coming from Malejo, and they finally are able to pick up that kill.
Down on bot, we have initiation on the Gyrocopter. It was a good hook, and we have the follow-up Fissure from Earthshaker. The cooldown does go, but wasn't enough to pick up the Clockwork. He's just going to bottle straight back up.
Yeah, and I think without the rotations in from the Lich as well as the Earthshaker, the Clockwork would have been in a lot of trouble there. And that's kind of what happens. He knew he got solo killed before by that Gyrocopter throwing out the Rocket Barrage and cooldown. This time he brings some friends and they pick up the kill because of it, and he just survives. So definitely learning from his mistakes. So in this mid game, sitting at about 10 minutes into the game, we do have Mirana as our lead farmer, but then the next 3 heroes are on Radiant. In fact, we might have an engagement on mid. Imprisonment coming out on Akirior, followed up by the stun, as well as the ultimate from Potato. It bounces to Ruby Phoenix. It's bouncing between creeps. It's hit him twice now. He needs to be very careful of his positioning. Throwing out the Rocket Barrage, but he gets instantly taken out of the map. Carblos now coming through. Right clicks from the orb. Magic Man doesn't have any mana to throw out the stun. And Alchemist just has enough, but a nice pickup there by MI6, taking down the Viper.
I think the Sanity's Eclipse was a little bit unnecessary simply because they did have the Lich ulti that got thrown out, and there was definitely enough damage with the orb to pick it off, but I think it was just more of a kill secure YOLO ulti kind of thing.
Well, we saw kind of not using an ulti on the Doombringer the other match really backfire hardcore when Quinnipiane was able to pick up a double kill for nothing. In fact, now Emster might be in some trouble. Roger Dodger comes in here, but Emster's so strong. Gosu Panda throwing out the stun, and Emster finally dropping down to Fantasy's Fissure. The rotations from MI6 have just really been on point this game.
Kill secured.
We see Akirior actually going for a bit of a solo kill, but no, he throws out the illusion runes, and we'll be taking him down. Right now, Carblos, he's been farming decently. It looks like he is going for that mech. It's an item that we've seen a lot of ODs skip recently, since the change of items not proccing Essence Aura anymore. But, you know, this game, the problem is that it leaves OD with no damage. It doesn't give him any intelligence. It gives him a bit of survivability, but if that's what you're aiming for, I think a 4-stuff would be much better and get up the mechanism on a different hero like, you know, the Clockwork or the Lich. So I think I would have preferred to see him get a 4-stuff.
I think the mech definitely would have been a better pickup on the Lich. It's usually one of the core items that Lich goes for, but I think the reason they went for the mech on the OD is simply because they've had good rotations, especially with the defensive fissures from Earthshaker on mid. OD's actually been able to do pretty well against Viper. He's actually 500 gold net worth ahead.
Meanwhile, in top lane, Malajo, the stun comes out on Potato, and he's in deep trouble. Goes down instantly to the rotation of the Crystal Maiden, as well as Bristleback, and it looks like they might look to pressure this tower, but right now, Storm don't really have much tower pushing ability. I mean, kind of the best thing that they have is throwing down an acid spray behind the tower and have the nether toxin from Viper going to work, but in fact, both of these teams are really, really weak on tower push.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the issue as well. Like, they have great defense on their tier 1s, especially when Clockwork's in the lane. He's just, if they go for the tower, he's able to sort of separate them up with the cogs.
Well, the stun comes out in mid. Carblos takes out the Alchemist instead of himself. Now the Viper Strike, but he does have a haste rune. It looks like he's just going to get out of here. The damage won't be enough. He's going to bottle up as well and stay in the area. If he throws out on a Kyrior, he's trying to just steal as much intelligence as he can. Fantasy coming in at the same time. Stuns out too. A Kyrior on the other side. Malajo just not enough mana for the stun. Now has it. Carblos gets saved again by the bottle with the haste rune inside. Now he's charging it up. He wants to take down a Kyrior here. Doesn't have the ultimate. Meanwhile, Clockwork taking down Bristleback in the top lane. Fantasy doesn't have enough mana for the stun. 5 off, so they won't be able to pick up the kill on the Viper in mid lane. But as I was saying, Clockwork picking up another kill on that Bristleback. It's really starting to slow him down here.
This is something that, like, I have an issue with when people play Earthshaker. It's people that really just sort of, they max their fissure early on. I think it's usually good in pubs to do that.
Ooh, the long range stun coming out. Oh, and the ultimate missing from Carblos. Doesn't pick up the kill there, and that's going to be on cooldown for another 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. Like you said, he doesn't have enough intelligence, so there's not enough difference for him to actually get the kill there. And just as I was saying before, with the Earthshaker, I think it's not that great. I mean, he picks up his mana boots now, which is good for him, but it's not that great to max your fissure this early because you really don't have that much of a mana pool to go with. And I think usually putting a little bit more points into Aftershock, or at least 1 or 2 points into stats, is much better to allow you to get that initiation.
Meanwhile, in top lane, Malajo comes through. He's stunned out Potato. They're looking for something, but we've got rotations in as well as Moonlight Shadow. Malajo dropping low, but throws out the ultimate. He'll be almost at full health again. Roger Dodger coming in with the battery assault, but Malajo runs into his creep wave wisely. He's going to be able to throw out the stun on Roger Dodger, but in comes the Lich ult. He hits on a Kyrior. He goes down to the Starfall. Roger Dodger now in a bad place. Emster blocking it with his body. 3 stacks up on that Nasal Goo. He's going for the kill, needs 1 more shot. Emster picking up the return kill. Viper gets off the Viper Strike before he dies, but Carblos still gets the kill, but now in a lot of trouble. The mechanism comes out, but it's not going to be enough, I feel. Needs a couple more shots. In fact, it does look like it will be enough with the imprisonment out on Bristleback. Again, bottling up and being able to run away, saving the life of the OD.
That Astral Imprisonment literally just came off cooldown right when he did it.
Nice and lucky for him. Meanwhile, quite a bit of damage being done on that mid tower by Ruby Phoenix, but it looks like Potato might try it. No, he misses out on the deny. A little bit unlucky, but it means that the Gyrocopter wasn't in the fight. And right now, I mean, Gyrocopter, he's farming decently. He does have the highest net worth in the map, but I just don't feel it's enough. Gosu Panda leaps, but the stun still hits. Emster's diving in here, but in comes TP support. The Frost thrown out, but Emster taking big hits. The double Starfall hitting through. Malajo now behind the tower, needs to run from Roger Dodger. He still has the hook shot available. He hits his own creep, walks in just in time, and now they're going for a 3-man block. Malajo in a lot of trouble. The Fisher securing the kill, letting Clockwork come in for the last right click. And they trade there, 2 for 1.
The arrow from Gosu Panda really just set up a great turnaround from them. He was able to get the arrow when he was Bristleback was under the tower range, so getting the Alchemist was really a very good trade-off.
Carblos coming in mid. A great Fisher block here. Echo Slam thrown out, and Carblos smacks him down with that orb attack. And I think this is actually a great combo that's being shown by MI6 here, where they're using the Astral Imprisonment to set up a rotation in from Fantasy just to throw out that Fisher. And it's really working well for them. Every time they've done it, it's kind of ended up in a kill. So just great teamwork and a nice little combo MI6 is showing us today.
Yeah, I think it sets them up really well, especially with sort of unreliable stuns like the arrow from Mirana, and even if, you know, Clockwork is great at hitting hooks, you are always, like he did just now, are always going to miss a few, and using the Astral Imprisonment to set those up, I think, is really smart by them.
Clockwork might be looking for a hook on a Kyrior in this mid lane, but he's on the wrong side of the creeps right now. Should have vision of him now. The hook comes out, catches on a Kyrior. Battery Assault coming out as well as the orbs. He throws out the Viper Strike, but it won't be enough. Meanwhile, Mirana also grabbing a kill on the Gyrocopter. Gyrocopter was doing so well just a moment ago, but now being overtaken by Mirana and OD in net worth. And this OD is just off getting his 4-staff. Has the Staff of Wizardry up, and in fact, he's going to get a double kill. Gosu Panda throwing out the Moonlight Shadow. The arrow gets thrown out, but Malajo, knowing that it was going to be coming, smartly steps to the side. Now he has a medallion up, but he needs to run for his life. A bit of Miss Micro on the courier, maybe trying to slow him down by throwing out a bit of a thing. And in fact, we're going to have Malajo blocked off by Creeps. He can't get in range for the stun because of it. Creeps MVP. Now Emster way too far in because he didn't have the follow-up. And it looks like Emster might go down here. 38 left, and we see Roger Dodger on a killing spree. And I gotta say, that was pretty much solely due to the fact that the Alchemist got caught out there by Creeps. If he was able to walk in there, they would have got a stun off on one of the heroes in kind of this area and would have been able to pick one off and retreat back out. So, extremely unlucky for the Alchemist there.
MVP Dire Creeps.
It's insane. But because of that, MI6 pick up the kill, and they also set themselves up nicely to take out this T1 tower. And as I was saying before, with both teams kind of lacking the abilities to take down towers, you can see how agonizingly slow this is, even though we are almost 20 minutes into the game, and this is a tier 1 tower.
Well, this is like, even though, you know, the Creeps really set up the free kill on the Bristleback, like MI6, they're making all the good rotations. They're picking up kills where Storm really, they're not making the right decisions. They're getting caught out, or they're going over aggressive where they really shouldn't be. And obviously the slight mistake where Alchemist gets blocked by Creeps, stuff like that shouldn't really be happening.
In comes Malajo with the stun coming out. It's not going to catch Potato in the cooldown, just out of range. In fact, now Ruby Phoenix getting caught out here. Emster coming through with the Nasal Goo. They want to go for Potato because he's the easy kill. In comes Viper, but it's just not going to be enough damage. Yes, it will be with the Rocket Barrage coming through. Gyrocopter picking up that kill. Lich very unlucky there. Just enough to get it out before the TP completed.
Yeah, I think with Main 6 making all these rotations, they're getting a lot of kills, and I don't think that Storm are really doing enough with the amount of farm sort of that Gyro's been getting. Like, he's been doing decently, but a lot of the time when there were fights all the way up in top lane, there wasn't really enough that Gyro was doing to really get his farm up, because not a lot of the camps were stacked, because the majority of it was taken by the Crystal Maiden and Alchemist duo.
We are going to see an imprisonment off in the top lane. Roger Dodger is rotating in. The arrow flies out just too early, and it doesn't look like Clockwork wants to dive it, but OD does. Maybe thinking that the Clockwork was going to hook in there, but now Emster is out here. The Rocket Flare is going to come through. In fact, out comes an imprisonment. The pings are coming out. Roger Dodger just too slow to get the cogs off and doesn't go for the hook either. So, in fact, they go in for Malajo. He dies before the stun comes out, but it's still self-stuns Roger Dodger under the tower. He's going to have to defensively hook out of range here. The imprisonment coming out, but now Carblaw is way too far behind this tower. Tries to TP up, but gets stopped. Throws out the ultimate before he dies. Does quite a bit of damage, and I think right now Kyrior is just going to sit back and not be too aggressive in this top lane.
That actually almost ended up killing off the Crystal Maiden. He was on about 600 or so HP before he went into that, and he was just in range when the Sanity's Eclipse was dropped, and now he has to run all the way back to the fountain.
Right now, actually, Gosu Panda coming in behind this tower. It looks like they want to set up a kill on a Kyrior. In comes Gosu Panda. He's looking for it now. In fact, the Courier is coming here. If he comes out here, it could be disastrous. The Rocket Flare should have spotted it out there, but Gosu Panda just staying off to the side, missing out on the courier as well as a kill.
No, go for the courier. Give the people the items.
But we do see the return mechanism being picked up by a courier. Mechanism, you know, a pretty decent item on Viper. It used to be the standard that you'd build a Vanguard, but because Viper is range, if you actually get the full heal off near the beginning of a fight, Vanguard gives you a lot more EHP with the bonus damage, as well as the effect of the heal. So it's definitely a very nice item to have on Viper and gives him a lot more stayability as well.
And Gyro actually just did pick up his BKB as well, which is about average timing to pick that up, but I feel like because of the amount of farm he missed, he could have gotten that a lot earlier.
We are going to see a smoke up. Emster is going to catch out Carblos here. We're going to see an imprisonment. Fantasy is in range to throw out this Fisher. He throws it out just too early. Ruby Phoenix with the cooldown. Carblos now in trouble. The mechanism gets thrown out. Potato with the ultimate. It's bouncing through here. It may not hurt Phoenix, but it certainly is hurting Emster. Now OD looking to take a fall possibly, but he's getting taken out. Gosu Panda throwing the shots out, and in fact, Lich picking up the kill now. Akirior coming in from the backside, but he's getting hunted by Clockwork. Magic Man coming in with the stun on Potato. It's going to be followed up by Malajo onto Gosu Panda. He's going for the kill. Akirior trying to take down Roger Dodger. It's going to be close, but Roger Dodger gets the kill. He's ticking down to the corrosive skin, but he lives on 30 health. Meanwhile, OD picks up the kill. Kills everywhere, but it ends up with the entirety of Team Storm dead. Potato on 40 health, and Clockwork was on about 20 as well, so it could have been a lot worse for MI6, but getting decently lucky there and living.
And I'm actually surprised that Storm didn't, they didn't really, I don't think they played their abilities right, because Earthshaker actually didn't have his Echo Slam up for that fight, so he was sort of roaming around in this area, and Alchemist and Crystal Maiden were focusing more around the Earthshaker running up here than actually helping the rest of their team take out MI6 up here. So that's actually where MI6 came out on top.
It definitely was a good fight for him. If we take a look at the experience graph, it's now almost 12,000 in favor of MI6. If you take a look at the gold, they're sitting at around 6,000 ahead as well. So while the gold may not have opened up quite a bit, they definitely are very far ahead in experience, and that can mean all the difference with heroes like the Marana, the OD, basically every hero on the side of MI6, which are quite level dependent. So, you know, you know, every hero is to a certain degree, but I would say, you know, Gyrocopter's more farm dependent than level. But the level's definitely helping out MI6 a hell of a lot. Roger Dodger might be looking for a hook shot in here. Hooks onto Malajo, who's caught out now. BKB thrown out. The arrow follow-up. Gosu Panda getting the kill with the Desolator that he's picked up. Now forced off in by Carblos. Emster also getting stunned out. The ultimate thrown out, doing a lot of damage. We've got a double kill now for Panda, and Carblos grabbing a kill as well. It's a 3-for-0 trade. Barely any damage even done to the Clockwork, and he's looking for more. We have on the high ground Teal getting caught out. Magic Man. Fantasy has that Blink Dagger, catches him. It's a triple kill now for Gosu Panda, coming through with that Desolator damage, and it's just proving too much for Storm at this point of the game, and it's looking quite dangerous for them. Meanwhile, in top lane, Carblos going to town on Akirior, looking for a kill, but the double damage just not enough. Akirior will live for now. But because of that kind of engagement, Akirior's nowhere near the tower, and they easily take out a tier 2. Not really that Akirior could have done much against 4 heroes.
Yeah, and actually they took out 2 of the 3 core heroes for Storm, like in the space of about 4 seconds. So the power that MI6 have right now is really strong, and they're actually going to go into the Roche Pit with that Medallion up on the Lich, and they're going to take this pretty quickly.
Yeah, with the Desolator and Medallion, it's going to be an extremely quick Roshan, already dropping down to about a quarter of his life. So we will be seeing the Aegis more than likely up on Gosu Panda. In fact, Clockwork even hooks himself out of the pit because he didn't want to go down there. Go back home for a quick heal, and I think this is where Clockwork kind of angles for an Aghanim Scepter. He's finished up the BKB. It helped him out a lot in the last fight. And he should be able... I think a low cooldown hook is going to be the best item for him now. But in fact, it looks like he's going to build into a Shiva's Guard.
Yeah, he was holding on to 2.2k there. Aghanim's definitely could have been a good pickup, but because he picks up that Blade Mail, it definitely looks like he's
Moonlight Shadow into the mid lane. The stun comes out onto Emster. Starfall to follow up, but he's still so tanky. Leap to try and get ahead, but Emster's just running through. Meanwhile, Carblos gets a solo kill. Oh, not a solo kill, but a kill on the Viper. They stop chasing Emster for a moment. Gosu Panda getting distracted, and he goes down. Gyrocopter picking up 1 kill and stopping the Aegis as well, but they know they can't follow it up too closely. Malajo now coming through with the stun, but in comes Gosu Panda. It's gonna be a suicide from Malajo because of the damage coming out, and now a Scythe picked up by the OD.
Yeah, there was Lich actually was attempting to get his Frost Blast up onto the Bristleback, but because of the Crystal Maiden Frostbite, was actually not able to do so, and there was a good turnaround. They popped the Aegis. Sadly couldn't get the kill because of the Gyro backing up, and Alchemist was able to luckily deny himself, giving people some items, so hopefully they'll be happy with those.
Emster is under smoke behind this tower, might be looking to go in on the OD here, but he does have a Scythe. I don't like Emster's chance. In fact, he is going to walk straight into Roger Dodger. He throws out the cogs. There's no way that Emster can really get past it. He just has to wait till they run out. Meanwhile, we do have Fantasy, who does have a Blink Dagger and a Force Staff coming through from the side. Malajo does stun himself out here, and this much kind of mobility on an Earthshaker can be very, very scary.
That was actually some pretty next level scouting. The courier was actually not going for secret shop. It was kind of just roaming around going up here, and they spotted out the clockwork in this sort of tree line there. So I think they weren't intending to use it as a scout, I'm not sure, but I think they kind of assumed that clockwork may have been in this sort of general area because the OD was so aggressive sitting up here.
It certainly was poised very aggressively. A Rocket Flare comes out. It's going to pick out Emster rotating through here. A Kyrior is in lane, will be spotted by the creeps. It looks like they're thinking of doing something with Fantasy and Kablos here. Carblos maybe going in, but decides not to. That Corrosive Skin doing quite a bit of chip damage. Meanwhile, Invis Rune going to be picked up by Gosu Panda in the bottom. He does pick it up, so... Right now, Team Storm look to be on the ropes. They're down 12 to 31 in terms of kills. They're behind in towers as well. And right now, Fantasy just blinking his way through the trees, trying to get into a good position for a fight here on the bottom lane. Meanwhile, in the mid, Gosu Panda using that invis to come into the fight. Emster now going on Potato, throwing out the Moonlight Shadow. The Desolator hits coming through. In comes the cooldown, but it's just not enough. And the ulti from Roger Dodger catching out Emster inside the cogs. OD picks up a kill on Viper in the top lane. Now Potato throwing out the ultimate, but the ultimate from Magic Man does a lot. Gosu Panda picking up the kill with a nice arrow. Roger Dodger now going to just be able to TP out of that fight. Fantasy blinks forward, needs to find something good here. Ruby Phoenix is in a lot of trouble. The ulti from Kablos comes through. Ruby Phoenix, though, picking up a double kill. Now Malajo in trouble. I think Kablos could have just right-clicked that one down, but throws out the Imprison first. And that is going to be a double kill for the OD, and a 4-for-2 trade in terms of kill.
And actually was just out of sync with getting the triple kill because of the time he had to walk all the way from top lane from killing Viper up to the fight in this area. But yeah, that's a four-man wipe for Storm, and that just it shows on the graphs. They're now 20,000 experience ahead, and they're heading up into the 15,000 gold lead.
It's looking quite dire for Storm right now. Are quite behind, and Gyrocopter kind of lacking the farm. He is the top farmer on their team. He does have, you know, some decent items, but he's starting to get a Helm of the Dominator, which is something that he should have been getting, you know, at the 20 kind of minute mark. Meanwhile, Akirio, the Force Staff coming out from Carblos as well as the Scythe. One more shot should do it, but the Mechanism comes through. A long hook shot in from Roger Dodger, picking up the kill. Malajo going for the stun here. Will catch out Roger Dodger right next to the tower, but there are no TPs in here because MI6 are just positioned too well around this tower.
The Tricore sort of lineup from Storm with the Bristleback Viper and the Gyro, they're not farmed enough. They're falling behind. Like if you look at the net worth, you've got Earthshaker that's almost caught up to the Viper at this point. He actually does have a Force Staff now as well on top of the Blink Dagger, so he's got a lot of mobility. And I just feel like Storm, they're at this point where they're not really able to push out because they just don't have the damage.
Exactly. It was kind of the job of Viper, as well as the Bristleback, to kind of set up that mid game for Gyrocopter to be able to farm. The only problem was that there was no stacking of camps from the Radiant supports. Every camp that they came across, they were killing themselves for level and gold, which, you know, is absolutely fine, but I think if you've got two heroes there, you should be stacking two camps. You take one and leave the other for the Gyrocopter. As far as I've seen, there's been no stacking of the Ancients as well, even at one stage Malajo taking him down himself, so they just had no real kind of catch-up mechanism when they should have had one. So unfortunately, Gyrocopter coming into this mid-game at almost half the net worth of the OD, sitting at, you know, around just over 9k, where OD's around 16.5, so very dangerous. Meanwhile, the Roshan won't be back for another minute and a half at minimum. But OD picking up the point booster. Looks like he might be going into an Aghanim Scepter. In fact, does complete the Ag Scepter. So, I mean, I'm not a giant fan of Ag Scepter on OD. I think it's much better to get something like a Shiver's Guard or a Refresher Orb. With the Shiver's Guard already being covered by Roger Dodger, or what I would assume would be a Shiver's Guard with the plate mail that he has, I think that, personally, Carbloz should have gone for the Refresher Orb.
Yeah, I think it's more of a greedy sort of item pickup. I think he just sort of wanted to go for the bigger damage in the team fights, simply because they've got such a huge lead that I think he's under the assumption he's just going to be getting a lot more farm and will pick up maybe the Refresher Orb at a later time.
I think the thing is, it does give you more damage in a team fight in the one burst of the ultimate, but it might not even do that with the intelligence difference that you can actually gain from the extra intelligence from kind of a Mystic Staff, or even a double ultimate from a Refresher Orb is definitely more than just a slight increase in multiplier. I think it may be more that he needs more stayability in these fights, just up against the Bristleback as well as the Viper, who just have such strong damage over time skills. In fact, we're going to see a force forward. Emster getting caught out here. The arrow will just miss. In fact, it actually hit Alchemist. The OD ult catches him out. Godlike spray now for Carbloz, as well as Emster going down. The MI6 team looking set to go up to high ground now. Magic Man almost being kind of half health by one shot from Coblos. The stun coming in from Fantasy Potato. Gonna eat a stun? No, they do manage to kill it off, but MI6 just running up the high ground then.
And Alchemist just got instantly dropped by that Sanity's Eclipse.
Hook getting blocked out there. Magic Man going down in 3 shots. Echo Slam coming up from Fantasy. Ruby Phoenix drops almost instantly. Akirior now going down as well. Double kill for Carbloz, and the good game gets called by Storm. MI6 will go to a 1-game advantage in this third place decider. The final kill score, 14-41. And just excellent rotations from MI6 there. The combination of the OD imprisonment with the Earthshaker Fisher was...
Yeah, I think that's the issue that Storm really had, was the fact that the early rotations from MI6 really allowed the OD not to lose to Viper and just set them